Skywatch.Ai insurance is on demand and anytime you need it. Check out the link below. I'm Justin Davis and this is Drone Camps RC. Hey, how's it going? I'm Justin Davis from Drone Camps RC. Today we're going to do a totally different episode. We're going to do some off-road FPV, and this is a new 1/10 scale rock crawler that came to me last week. It's called the RGT EX86100. You can also look it up by EX86100 on GearBest's website. I think these trucks are around $200 retail price. If you use the coupon down below, you can probably get an extra 20 bucks or something off, making it around $180. It is totally worth it, mainly because we decided to do something different with these two RC Jeeps. For some reason, GearBest decided to send me two of these, but when I opened both of the boxes, I was super excited to see how cool they look. From front to back, they look really awesome. They kind of look like a hybrid military style Jeep or something, maybe more like a more aggressive sort of Baja inspired style Jeep for off-road. It's sort of like a hybrid rock crawler slash 4x4 Jeep. And they do look extremely cool. They have like re-inflatable tires. You can hear air coming out of the tires, and really awesome 4x4 suspension on these. But what makes these really cool is the fact that we used a reamer, like a prop reamer, and just drilled a hole right through the truck body in the windshield, and we put two FPV camera setups on here. That totally changed the game with these Jeeps and made the fun level go up by like 500%. I swear I've had more fun with these two Jeeps than just about any other RC car or truck here on my channel this last week. And we had so much fun doing this that when we came back, we felt like we needed to do this about once a week. It's really a lot of fun, and it's way different than flying an FPV racer or any type of aerial photography drone. This is like a whole nother level, mainly because people out in the park weren't intimidated by us. We're driving a little bit faster than like walking speed. Kids were running alongside these Jeeps. They're ultra lightweight. They're not really heavy. They don't do 60 miles an hour. They're not going to break someone's ankle if you hit them in the ankle with it. And it's very, very likely you're not going to injure anyone or their animals out there in the park. People were actually kind of amused at us running around and bashing and knocking into each other and flipping each other over. The dogs were chasing us around, and it really was a fun day with no stress. These things aren't flying around in the air. People aren't afraid of getting hit in the head with them. So it's, and they don't feel like they have an invasion of their privacy, which is kind of cool. Even though we did have FPV cameras on here, people thought it was really, really cool. And we handed the goggles over to a couple kids to let them try it and give them a first person perspective of an RC truck. And a slower one is interesting because mainly you don't have as much vibration in the camera systems when you're driving these trucks at slower speeds. Even though these trucks do have like a brushed motor on board and a NiCad battery, that's actually good for FPV because it slows everything down and it makes the vibration in the cameras way less than if you're doing 60 miles an hour over rock and dirt and gravel with a super aggressive brushless type of setup. This is actually a lot more enjoyable because when you drive across the field at this slower speed, you get less vibration, and when you drive like 100 to 200 feet out, it feels like you drove like a half mile because you're going so slow, and you're really enjoying more of the moment when you're driving like this. And the cool thing is that it has this sort of locking differentials on here, so if you go up on an obstacle, you can let off the throttle, reposition your wheels, and keep maintaining your climb over top of an obstacle or a rock, which is also really cool. So it's kind of like a rock crawler as well. But let's go ahead now and charge up the batteries. I think you guys are going to love this. Maybe it'll inspire you to take an FPV system yourself and put it on some type of RC car. If you want to get one of these, I'll put the link down below for this, and I'll try to include a coupon on these as well so you guys can get a discount. I think these are around the $200 price point, but they look so cool that once you have an FPV system on there, they're definitely worth the purchase. But I want to say thanks to Diego for also inspiring me to do that, because I was just going to do a normal episode, rock crawling, maybe a little bit of drone footage of this little guy running around for you guys, but he inspired me to do this. Put these 600 milliwatt transmission video transmitters on here and go out and have some FPV fun with these Jeeps, because we had two of them. Why not, right? They got all the way across the park. The range is at least a quarter mile. It's kind of crazy. I thought that these would just go maybe a couple hundred feet away and just fail safe and stop. But we were able to go all the way across the park with these, down the sidewalk, around all kinds of obstacles, behind things, and back to where we were. I almost got lost. I went so far out with this. It was really a lot of fun, and I think you guys are going to think it's extra cool once I show you the video and the FPV footage. But also, if you want to get entered into the drawing this month, we have a drawing on November 2nd coming up very, very soon. Please do make a comment down below. Let me know where you're from. If you drive RC trucks, or you do race drones, or you do aerial photography, let me know what you're into as far as RC. That would be awesome, and let us know where you're from. That would be super cool. But coming up, we're giving away that Emax Baby Hawk R, and we're giving away the iFlight IH3 long range drone. So super cool. You can check out my Patreon down below if you want to inspire me to make more videos like these for you guys. That would be also extra special. But let's go ahead and charge up both these batteries, slap some cameras on these guys. Let's get them all set up, and we'll go out and we'll do some off-road FPV. Here we go, guys. Alright guys, welcome back from that drive test. Was that like the coolest thing ever or what? I had so much fun driving this truck around with a camera on the front. It really did feel like I was like sitting in the driver's seat, and it was such a cool experience just to get out there and just cruise. I just had fun driving across the field and going different directions. There's a lot of constructions out there right now, so there's quite a bit of different types of terrain you can go over, like rocks, grass, and all kinds of dirt out there. Some big dirt clouds you can kind of just RC over top of 4x4 to your heart's content. And rock crawling, it's okay with this truck. I'm not going to say it's like one of the expert style rock crawlers out there. It's not a professional rock crawler you're going to spend a lot of money on to do that specifically. This truck is more for just kind of RC enjoyment, just driving around and 4x4ing at kind of a slower pace. It does have those lock-in differentials, which is kind of cool. And the suspension on these guys, it's a 6mm steel suspension, and it has multi-links inside there to be able to make that happen. And I'm going to show you that suspension in just a minute, but it does come with a 2S 2000 milliamp nickel metal power pack that I charged up. It does have that. It says RGT on here. I thought it said RST, but it's actually RGT. So that's the brand of this particular truck, and it does charge up in about 2 hours time. And then you're going to get about, I was respectively getting from 15 minutes to 18 minutes off this battery pack. So if I can find another link for this down below, you can grab an extra battery. It also has the Dean's connector on there, and very standard old school connector. You can also charge this on a standalone charger, but it does come with its own little sort of AC outlet wall adapter with that Dean's plug on the end right here. No balance lead on this one, not really needed with this type of battery, but you will get, like I said, about 15 to 18 minutes out of this battery. Now, if you want to do an FPV setup, I'm going to cut to that and show you how you can do that, and then I'll try to put some links below and a list of these components that you can use to put on your Jeep. So now we're going to get to the fun part. If you're brand new to FPV, if you've never done this before, you can get a set of goggles for under $100, and you can get almost get 2 sets of goggles if you have a son or a daughter you want to do this with. I'll try to put some links down below where you actually get a decent pair of goggles. They're going to be a box style goggles, meaning it's sort of shaped like a box. It's just going to go right on the front of your face, and it will have antennas that are included with it and a battery hopefully, and some of them do have DVR, so you can actually record your videos together as you're sort of racing around your yard, or if you have a local RC track, that might be fun to do as well. Do some FPV on your local RC track. That'll be a whole bunch of fun. If you can make it around and do some laps like that, that might be kind of a different angle for RC racing in general. Probably not going to do that in any type of real official RC race, but it might be fun to just go and practice that by yourself or with a friend. So let's go ahead now. Let's talk about an FPV setup. The way I had it was I had something running 600 milliwatt, and 600 milliwatt is going to be perfect because it's going to get you way out there in the field, almost across any park out there, unless it's like Yellowstone or something. You're going to have plenty of range with that type of setup, and you need a video transmitter. I'm going to try to put a link down below for one that I'm going to suggest for this setup. This is actually the FXT Black Knight, and this is a decent one. It's probably overkill. This one does up to 800 milliwatt, but you really don't need to run 800 milliwatt, and mainly because the higher that this shoots out, the higher power you use, the harder signal you're sending out, which is great, but it's going to overheat. So very important to run something like 600 milliwatt, or maybe even 400 or 200 is totally acceptable on this type of setup. If you go above 600, you're probably going to overheat the video transmitter. A lot of these transmitters do now have a sensor inside that's going to be like a temperature sensor, so that it will actually shut down before it fries it. So if you smell, this smells like bacon or toast, that means that you probably fried it, and your video is going to obviously go black. So you want to be aware of that. You don't want your VTX to overheat. And on something like a slower RC truck, or Jeep setup like this, that's really important that you mount it somewhere. I actually took the casing off the exterior of it. Normally it's covered in plastic, but I wanted to be able to breathe as much as it possibly could. Now, even though I did have this one mounted inside, it's fall right now, and it was probably about 60 degrees outside when we were shooting this video and having fun with these trucks. So if you're going to do this during the summer months where it's going to be close to 100 degrees, you might want to mount this on the exterior of the truck and maybe not run a video transmitter on a super slow truck, because the slower it goes means the less cooling that this is getting. It needs to have a lot of airflow for these not to overheat. So just one little tip for you guys that are brand new to FPV. Now, we did use this little cable right here, and this is an MMCX on this end right here, and this other end is an SMA connector, and you want to make sure that you pair these up correctly. This is a female, and you will need a male end. So this is an example right here. This is a female as well, so this wouldn't be right for you. So if you order an antenna, make sure that you get the right one. You need an SMA male to SMA female. So that means that that's going to have a little post inside this one, which this one does not. This is just for an example, but it's going to screw on just like this, and you're going to mount that up through the truck body. And I brought it right through the hood like this in the front, and we brought our camera right through here using a prop reamer. We just reamed the hole right through the size of our camera lens, and we were pretty much good to go. You could also put it on the very top, but flipping over, I wanted it just be a little bit lower, but still over top of the truck a little bit, so we didn't have any issues with it breaking off. And just a little bit of hot glue on there is going to totally hold this in place. Don't overdo it with the hot glue, because you'll have a real problem getting your camera back off if you choose to put this on an FPV race quad later. But as far as cameras are concerned, I would probably recommend something like the Frsky Predator. Those are great. It might be overkill for something like this. You can also use the little micro cams, which would be a little bit lighter weight. This little truck is not going to care about your FPV weight setup, so don't worry about getting the lightest components out there for this. It really doesn't matter. What this is most importantly for you is that you have a nice camera on there, and I'll try to put a good link down below for a really nice camera. Now, one of the nicest cameras out there right now is probably this camera right here, the Fox. This is the Frsky Falcor camera. A very nice huge lens on here, very similar to the other one, the Frsky Predator, but this one's a 2.5 millimeter lens, very similar to something like a GoPro. But the Falcor has notoriously good video and extremely nice WDR and very, very vivid color. Also has a really nice dark to light ratio when it goes underneath trees. You do have a nice transition, a nice quick transition from dark to light and light to dark. That means when you go into the shadows and out. So pretty important for FPV cameras. For FPV racing, it's very important because you're going at high speeds. On an RC truck, not such a big deal. So just about any old RC FPV camera can work for this type of setup. Now let's go ahead now and take a look at the suspension on this Jeep. I think you're going to be really impressed with how awesome this little suspension setup is. So now I have the Jeep body off here, and you can kind of see what's going on here. Look at these super tall posts in the very back for the back end of the truck body, and in the very front these are a little bit shorter, and these look like you can change the length, but you really don't need to, because the back end of the Jeep body is a lot higher than the front end where the hood is, obviously. But what's really cool about this is the fact that it does have this super awesome suspension on here. Check this out. It did come a little bit stiffer than I've actually felt some suspension on some RC trucks and cars lately. It feels kind of really rigid and fairly nice, and you can hear that they are actually oil-filled shocks, which is cool. You can hear a little bit of air coming out of the tires when you press down on it, like I showed you guys earlier. A kind of a really neat, realistic effect. But what's really cool about this chassis is the fact that everything, the CG in here, looks perfectly balanced out. They have that brushless, brushed motor in the very middle right here, and your gear drive system all the way around that. You can see it's all encompassed and waterproofed, so no water is going to get inside there. And they have the receiver waterproofed as well inside this case right here. Check this out. Now, why we got such great range on this receiver and the 2.4 transmitter, I think it's because of the antenna that they include with it. It's super tall, and the very top end of the antenna, the higher that is, the better range you're going to get out of this truck. So I was able to get way across the park with it, and that was really awesome. In the very front right here, we have the power switch, and that was just kind of taped down right there. In the very front, you can see right next to the steering servo, this is a 3 kilogram servo and a 40 amp ESC sitting next to it. And both of these are supposed to be waterproof. So it looks like the receiver is fairly well waterproof. There is a little bit of a hole right there that water could get into. So if you could seal that up, that might be a good idea. And on the very back right here, like I was saying, they do have the CG pretty well spaced out on this chassis, which I like a lot. The battery sits up just a little bit higher than the motor, but it also sits at the same level with all the gear on the front end. So you have a really nice balance when you're climbing things like obstacles or rocks, and trying to do a little bit of rock crawling. And what's also super cool is in the very front, you do have these 2 LEDs. So when you're kind of driving towards yourself at a distance, you can see the front end of the truck really well. And they do have a little bit of an extra bumper up here to keep you from damaging any of your components sitting right there. On the very back end, we don't have any type of LEDs. You do have holes back there, but you don't have any LEDs running back there. So one thing to note there. Also on the frame, a lot of this stuff is already aluminum. So all of this chassis underneath here from front to back, this is all aluminum down here. And the drive shafts have aluminum locks here, and there are plastic shaft parts in between the aluminum lock areas. So your differentials there are all aluminum. So that's pretty cool. And all of this is 4-wheel drive as well. And you can see everything is turning in time with everything else on the truck. But you also have steel reinforcements here from the center out to each axle, which make it turn this way and this way. This suspension is totally awesome and really works really well. I didn't have any of the links pop off the bottom, and you're not going super fast, so you're not likely to really pop any links off of here. Even this metal drive bar up front, all of this is metal. The steering arm coming from the servo, all of that right there is metal as well. You can see the top arm of the servo is metal. So there really is a lot of decent upgrades. And for around the $180 price point for $200, I think you kind of expect to see some of these types of upgrades on here. This thing is not totally blinged out by any means. I'm not saying it's like the best setup I've ever seen for a rock crawler, but it's not too bad for the price that they have this one going for. Now the transmitter that comes along with it, it's pretty decent. It does look pretty cool actually. It's called the MT305. It's running on 2.4 gigahertz, and this is probably the secret sauce of why we were able to get out there in combination with that receiver so far on the range. Running on 2.4 is great. Most RC cars and trucks and planes these days do use 2.4 gigahertz, very standard digital radio. So you can run more than a few of these at a time, which is neat. So you could probably run 3 or 4 of these at the same time, but you're also going to be limited to your FPV channels if you're running an FPV setup. But by yourself or with friends, you could run 4 or 5 of these at the same time. On the bottom, we do have 4 AA's it's going to require in the bottom. And I always use the rechargeable energizers. These are great. You'll be able to run this truck a bunch of different times before you have to recharge these batteries. Up in the very top, we do have that flip top. And you have dual rates in here. You have high and low. You can change the amount of throttle. If you're running this for, say your son or daughter is going to run this RC truck and they're a little bit younger, you want to tame it down a little bit. Just turn down the throttle on here. You can turn it all the way back to low, and it's actually going to steer, and it's going to drive a lot slower on the throttle. So it's going to just basically tame the whole thing down. If you're driving it yourself, you can crank that all the way back up, and you can go full throttle. You can also reverse servo channels in here as well with these switches, but I wouldn't really do that. You also have a bind button here, and this is your on-off switch, which turns the transmitter on and off, obviously, and all that can be closed up with that hatch. Your drive wheel is pretty decent. It does have sort of standard foam rubber around the drive wheel. It's not reversible for left-hand drivers, so this is going to be a right-hand driver type of setup on this transmitter, but decent transmitter that came along with it. All right, guys, there they both are, both the Jeeps sitting together. And let me go ahead and just break this down for you and give you some star ratings on this particular Jeep. When it first came in, I thought I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with this Jeep, mainly because it did have that brushed motor on there, and I thought, I'm not going to have much fun with this. It's going to be slow. I'm not, it's 4x4, yeah, but when Diego gave me the idea to actually do some FPV with it, that's what changed the whole game and the whole feeling about this particular Jeep. If you're into RC cars and trucks, you'll probably have fun with it anyway. You probably won't have to put an antenna on there and a transmitter and a camera. No big deal there. You can still have a lot of fun with this truck, but I think this totally changed the whole idea of this truck, and the whole fun factor was raised by 10 for me. So I would say, like, if I was going to rate this fun factor wise, it would be 5 out of 5 stars. Durability is going to be probably about 4.5. I think there could be some stuff on here that could be a little better, but I didn't have any problems. I had 0 problems with this truck as far as operation. The range was great, so 5 out of 5 stars for the range. The durability was great. The driving was a lot of fun. It was really responsive. Maybe a little bit of lag in the reverse for some reason. The throttle control worked great. Even way across the field, I had no problem with steering. There wasn't a lot of delay and lag in between the steering and just being all the way across the park. So that's a really good report for you guys. But if you want to pick one of these up down at the link below, I will try to get you that coupon set up down there so you can get a discount on it. And I'm going to definitely give you guys a list of components that you can put on there. Also some goggles that you can pick up if you want to try to FPV one of these. I think you're going to have a ball with it, and depending on where you live, it's really fun to go out and explore places and different terrains. So have a ball, get really creative. If you decide to pick one of these up, please do show me your setup. I would love to see it. If you guys are friends with me and you're my Patreon, please do send me an image of yours, the way you have your setup, or any of the videos you make with yours, because I think this is going to be a lot of fun for you. But anyway, guys, thanks again for subscribing on the channel. Thanks for being my Patreons, and keeping the creativity going here on the channel, and the stoke factor really super high. I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you. I'll see you on the next one, guys. Take care. Have a great week. Bye-bye.